Okay, now we're live.
Hello, people of Sakon!
Hey everyone, I'm Jonaya Riley,
I'm Anna, a Chaotically Composed.
and we're going to be running our little seminar today, which I'll bring up the first slide here. We're gonna be running a little panel I like to call Karkat Goes to a Project Management Seminar, which is kind of an overview of like running fandom projects that are on the medium to large scale, things that require a team of people, things that require a little more organization than just something you're doing yourself. Um, yeah, so we're gonna jump into it. This is gonna be at least an hour. If we may go a little over because there's a lot of stuff here, and I did kind of want to get through it. So like, if you got to go somewhere else after this, don't worry, this will be available. But if you want to stick around, if we don't get through it all in an hour, that would be cool. We'll probably do a little Q&A at the end if we have time. There was one question in particular. We got some questions when I opened things up for that, and I tried to integrate them into what we're talking about, except there was one specific question I thought was really good that kind of didn't fit in, so we'll get to that at the end. Let me switch slides here. So like, basically, who are we? Why don't you tell us who you are, and then I'll tell you who I am.
So, I am known as Articulate Composed in the fandom. I have been here since 2013, which is a really fucking long time for being part of the Homestuck fandom. I can wholeheartedly say that over a third of my life has been spent in this fandom. I wrote a Homestuck musical. It got me into grad school. It was called Time's Apprentice, and I put it on twice.
Yep.
Once in person with a bunch of student actors, and once for SOCON 2 years ago. And that was a very complicated undertaking, which took a lot of organization with all of the video clips and editing and not just mixing and everything. I have done a musical for SOCON every year for the past 5 years, and also I work in New York theater. Mm-hmm. I have put on my own shows a couple times. This past year I put on a reading of my original musical Maka. If you would like to check that out, there's some clips of it on my YouTube channel. I put on a 10-minute play, which was, hilariously enough, based on some Homestuck characters. Nobody knew that when it got accepted into the Play Festival. And, I currently work for a small theater company called Unattended Baggage. We are putting on an off-Broadway show in New York in about 2 weeks. Janaya's actually doing the photography for it.
Yeah.
And, if any of you happen to be in the New York area and plays about geek culture and comic books and agoraphobia, check out Cowgirl at the Players Theater.
Hell yeah. I'm Jonaya. I haven't been in the Homestuck fandom for that long, or not as long as Anna. I've been here for about 4 years. I've been extremely active in the Homestuck fandom. I've been involved in SOCON for the last 4 SOCONs, and I've been the co-director of SOCON for the last 3. And I'm directing Friendsim 2, which is a very, very big project. We're going to be drawing a lot of examples from that because it's a good example of like a huge project. I've helped with a lot of other fan projects on various scales. And in terms of like actual credentials, I am a software developer, so I have about 15 years of experience with like software development, project management, in like the business world. So I have a lot of experience with like some of the stuff we'll be talking about as far as like, time management and budgets and project shit and all sorts of really super exciting stuff. Hold on, let me go to the next slide. And then, like, the kind of projects that we're talking about here these are things that are not just going to be like you and a friend. These are things that require a team of people. They're larger projects. They require extended organization over a period of time. So these are things that are like, you're not going to finish them in a week. This is stuff that's going to take a few months or possibly years to do. It might require drawing resources in from outside the fandom. You might need help from people that aren't necessarily in the fandom right now, and they require a variety of skills. So this is things that require a combination of like art, writing, music, sound, voice acting, etc. This isn't like oh, I'm writing a fic that's really long. Like that does require organization, but like not quite what we're talking about here. So yeah, let's. Okay, our first slide here. Piss. So this is planning, information, structure, and setup, aka piss. Wait, that's no good. Okay, hold on, bear with me for a second here. So like.
Don't go in unprepared. Take a piss first.
It started with a kiss. How did it end up?
It started with a kiss. How did it end up with piss?
We're very serious. So, like, this is kind of like, joking aside, this is like, basically don't just, like, jump in. Like, step back and think about what you're doing. So you're, like, basically asking yourself at a very high level, like, how big is this project? What do I have available? What kind of skills do I have available, either from yourself or from other people? And then, like, what kind of relevant experience do you have with, like, IRL stuff or fandom stuff that might be relevant? So, like, one of the things you'll see here is this lovely color-coded chart. Anna, why don't you tell us about the color-coded chart?
We're looking at my patented turn it green method. I do this with pretty much everything I've ever run. Actually, I started using this at the very first SawCon Broadway Stuck 2019 panel. And that way, it wasn't a chart like this yet. Mm-hmm. At that point, my turn it green method was just a list in Google Docs with all of the characters and what songs they had to send. And every time someone would send me something, I would turn it green. And every time I would finish mixing a song, or if a song was already pre-mixed, I would turn the song name green. And I carried that over into pretty much everything I've ever done. I do it for my own personal musicals. When I put on Maka, both for the virtual table read and for the stage reading that I did in March, it was like, okay, so what needs to be done? How many of the... Which scenes need to be revised? When a scene was revised, I would change it. Which scenes need to be recorded? If there was recording involved, which ones need to be mixed if mixing was involved, what needs to be, on my end, what do I have to do when it comes to score preparation, because that's a big part of running musicals that is probably not relevant to you guys. But, yeah, I told Jonaya about that, or Jonaya found out about it when we were doing Time's Apprentice, because that had so many moving parts. It had video, it had audio, it had art. There were a lot of artists involved. I went way overboard with that one. I was like, OpenSea, this one song needs 8 individual images because I am Mindfang and I want all the individual images. So we had so much art, so many assets for that one. So I showed Jonaya this chart I was using.
Yeah.
This was around the time that we were doing planning for Friendsim 2, and Jonaya fell in love with the chart, and now she uses my patented turn it green method as well.
This is like a very high-level view of the project. This I took a screenshot of it, but it's a bigger spreadsheet that has like all of the kind of summary information. So you're starting at a very high level, looking down at like, okay, what am I trying to do? And then, like, what resources do I have? And one of the first places that you should start is with your core team of people. This is the people that are going to be kind of the center of your big project. It's going to be...
Pictures unrelated.
Pictures unrelated. I couldn't think of a good illustration, so I grabbed some...
Makes it seem like they're all in a team together. Yeah. So imagine a team with Elward, Marston,
and this is going to go great. But, like... So you have people that are like you, the person who's running the project, and then like you should get some people that you trust to kind of like help you with this process of like organizing, who ideally have like a fairly diverse range of like skills and experiences, but more than anything else are going to be people that you trust to be like fairly organized and fairly reliable. Because, like, you can't do everything yourself, and this is, like, it's good to have help with, like, other producers or other directors. Like, for example, so in Friendsim 2, we have a core team of me and a couple of producers, and then Anna, who's the voice director. So, like, why don't you tell us some of this stuff that you, like, helped with as the voice director that I didn't do all by myself?
Well, the thing that I did the most as voice director was casting.
Yeah.
So the two of us, we put together this big, long form for casting. It had all of the, like, you know, put all your info in, place to put your auditions, had all of the lines that everybody had to do, all the requirements for each character, because, of course, there were some characters that we wanted specific gender representation, certain race representation, etc., etc. And we got over 300 auditions.
For like 96 people or 97 people, plus some additional people that weren't on the form, and like they auditioned for multiple roles. So yeah,
so
we had a lot of people to go through.
Sat down and we listened to 300 auditions, and basically we weeded through all the ones that had poor audio. Like that was our first thing, was we basically weeded out all the poor audio quality. If there was a fan in the background, if the mic didn't sound clear, if it was like clear that it was a mic and it would sound like out of place next to our some of our more professional like professional paid actors, like official setups and all that, if it would sound out of place, we'd cut that. And then we just move on to listening through all the ones with clear audio, being like, okay, what fits the vibe we have the idea of. We would invite the writers for different routes on to listen to their specific characters. So like the writer for Volume 8 came on to listen to Amicia's voice actor, for example. The writer for Volume 4 listened to Marsty.
And like I think it's important when you're picking the people that are kind of going to be like the center of your project, is like you want to pick people whose like primary quality is that you can rely on them to like respond to things. Like they don't have to be there the whole time. Like people will come and go, especially with unpaid fandom stuff, especially over a long time. But like you want people that are going to communicate with you and be like upfront and be like, hey, I can't do this anymore, or like I can do these additional things. And like you know, the last thing you want with the people that are like the center of your project is somebody that's gonna be like flaky and just like not communicate. Like that's like communication and reliability. Like skill stuff is like those are things that you can like find people to do, or you can learn things, and like, but there's kind of like a central aspect of like just being like willing to communicate about the project and being willing to like be responsible or be honest when you can't do stuff. Like this is fandom stuff. No one expects everyone to like crunch on it, but like if you can't do something, to just be like, hey, I can't do that. Like, and I've done that in the past. I used to be the narrative director on a project that's now on indefinite hiatus, but like I couldn't do that anymore because I was running Friendsim 2 and like doing life stuff. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna be honest about that and not like just kind of like pretend that I'm good and everything. All right, so we're gonna move on. We'll talk a little bit more about like team composition and stuff. This is just kind of like your central people. Another slide I'm very proud of, ideas and why they all suck. The thing here we want to get across is like ideas for a project are not the hard part. Like everyone who's like, if you're a writer or an artist or a creator in general, you'll always get the question of like, how do you come up with your ideas? And it's like, that's relatively easy. You come up with all these ideas that you'll never make. They're all...
Fic writers refer to them as plot bunnies.
Yeah, plot bunnies. But like, you gotta kind of sit down and say, again, we're still very top level here, is like, is this idea something that is feasible? Like, if you want to make like a video game, have I made a game before? Do I know anything about making a video game? Do I know how to do development or know somebody who's willing to do it with me? Like, have I done this kind of project? Have I done this kind of organizational stuff? And then like also another important question is like, is this something I want to do for a long period of time?
Yeah, because even if you've never done something before, you can just jump in. There's nothing stopping you from diving into it.
Especially with fandom stuff.
Like, the first musical I ever wrote, I'd never written a musical before. I'd never written a play before. It was my first completed work of fiction that I'd written since I was maybe 14 years old.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, 5 years later, the book is bad. I've learned a lot about it since, but I did dive into writing a 2-hour musical about the Homestuck ancestors with no experience writing plays and no experience writing musical theater directly. I was a composer already, so that did help. But yeah, you can dive into something not. And Janaya, had you done Renpy before?
The first time I did Renpy was New Game Plus, but to be fair, I did start programming when I was like 10.
True.
So
true.
I have done development before, but yeah, I learned a lot about Renpy when I was working on New Game Plus, and then like that stuff did carry over to Friendsim too. Like I learned some very interesting and somewhat annoying things about how Python handles like, you know, copying variable arrays and stuff like that, and also like how RenPy handles like scope and stuff like that. So yeah, you are gonna learn a lot, and like you're gonna kind of iterate and loop back on everything. But like the if you don't want to do it for like a year or several months, like it may seem like a really cool idea, but also like, is it something you want to have to? Because like the project is going to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is like work that I have to do. Not like it's only work and not fun at all, but just that you have a lot of things that you have to work on. And like you just kind of have to do some of them. Like debugging is not a fun thing to do. It's a necessary thing to do if you want software that's usable. But like the fact that you believe in the project and care about it and want it to exist is going to carry you through that stuff. So like, yeah, I mean, debugging some of the Friendsim 2 stuff was, like, super frustrating, but also, like, I like working on it, and it's a cool project. And then, like, also, what you originally come up with, like, it can change. It probably will change. Things will shift, and, like, that's fine. And if you're trying to really, like, hold to this, like, pure idea of what it was originally, that may be a problem. Like, I showed this graphic here, which is a combination of the original mock-up, like, teaser image we did, and then my asking Anna, she wanted to make Friendsim 2 with me.
Yeah. Janaya directly asked me if because I was the one who got Janaya into Friendsim.
Yes, there's a reason for this.
my fanfic, The Progeny, which
Yes.
is on AO3, and also there is a read-through of it on my channel, where we are being very cute and gay. The Progeny got Janaya into Friendsim, and got her to write Delightful Abattoir and Unkind Sanctuary, and 2 sequels to The Progeny that are like triple the length of The Progeny.
But like...
But yeah. So there's a reason why I specifically was asked, even though I'd never made a video game before.
But like also you'd made large projects, like you'd worked on large projects, and the like the reason I showed this like test graphic is like the original concept for Friendsim 2 was much more focused on like kind of the original rubric of Friendsim, where only like you're gonna save them from Alternia, which kind of got into the game but like changed a lot and added to it.
It's kind of funny. Janaya's initial concept for Friendsim 2 was identical to the plot of Broadway Stuff 2020.
It also originally was going to mostly reuse existing Friendsim assets. It wasn't going to be as big as it ended up being, and like as time went on and we expanded it, like things changed, and things have changed with the plot, and like things changed during rewrites and stuff, and things got added or changed, and like that's something that you should kind of like flow with rather than trying to fight against, because it's like, oh, this needs to be like my original vision, and like sometimes that change will come from your team members and like different suggestions about how to do things differently that like you might not have thought of, but like it's a good idea.
Question, who was the one who suggested the Act 2 style walk around for Volume 7?
I thought of that.
That was you? Okay.
Yes, I thought of that because I had already coded the walk around for the Volume 3 stuff, and I was like, I bet I could do this.
We were talking... No, we were talking, it was over Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
we were talking because we were co-writing that one.
Yes.
We were talking about it, and you were like, what if it was the Act 2, like... Act 2 style walk around jokingly, and then that spiraled into literally 2 days later you had a demo.
I prototyped. Well, I had a prototype. You had to type in the walk command manually. So like you've got all these ideas, and you've got an idea of like what you can do with it, and you've got the level of flexibility required to sort of roll with things. But like now, you're gonna need more people than just you and like your one friend who does like a couple other things that you don't. So, like, yeah, if you could do everything yourself, this wouldn't be a team thing. This would be a one person. And there are some projects that are really impressive that are one person, and that is amazing, but that's also not really what we're talking
Video
about.
games, out of all media, video games technically can be done by one person.
Yes.
Or a team of 5.
Yeah.
Like, video games more so than other large media, because you can't make a film alone.
If
You can't do theater alone, you can't make a film alone. Video games are the only kind of... and I guess books. Video games and novels are the only types of expansive media that one can do alone.
If you're Toby Fox and you can do most of it yourself and you got, one person to help you with sprites, then, like, you know what you're doing already. This isn't for you. But, like, so people that the way I broke it down was you have people that you know and people that you don't know as far as, like, who you can get to help. And that's, like, people that you know are people who you're already familiar with. They are people who are maybe your friends already, or at least your acquaintances. You might know them. They're probably in the fandom. Maybe they're friends who aren't in the fandom, but they, like, know what you're about. And then you've got people who are outside the fandom that you're recruiting for the project specifically. And they can be inside the fandom. They could be outside the fandom. And basically, like, the trade-off here is, like, the people you know are going to be people you're more familiar with. They're going to be people that know you and know what you're like to work with, but they're also going to be a much narrower selection of people. They're going to be, you might not have some of the skill sets available or some of the diversity of, like, viewpoints or artistic styles or whatever. And then you might want to go to people that you don't know and look for other talent. And the problem with that is you have to deal with, like, applications and talking to people you don't know, and like, establishing your credentials and setting up the rapport with those people. So, like, one of the big areas where Friendsim 2 included, like, included a lot of people that we didn't know beforehand, or that at least, didn't know everyone involved, but also, like, the voice acting was one of the big things where we just opened it up to everyone.
Yeah. And that's the thing with indie voice acting projects is if people see... So this is probably going to come in a little later when we talk about budget.
Yeah.
But if people see a $sign attached to a project, professional voice actors will take it seriously. You will get people who are in indie games, you will get people who do audiobooks, you will get people who do this for money all the time because they saw that $sign.
Yeah. Even if it's not a ton of money. And, like, the thing is, like, it at the same time, if you're going to, like, open yourself up to that, you're also kind of, like, you're putting yourself out there in a way where, like, if you want to work with any of these people ever again, or, like, other people that they talk to, like, you're gonna have to really, like, present yourself in a way that is professional.
Yes.
So, like, you can't just talk to them like they're just random people. I don't mean because they're, like, big name actors. I mean just because they're people that aren't your friends necessarily.
You have to treat them like they are... I don't want to say your employees, because that feels gross and capitalistic.
Like, collaborators.
Yeah, you have to treat them like an equal collaborator, but not like someone who's just going to do stuff for... Because, Jonaya could ask me to write a track for free, and I'd probably do it, because I love her a lot. But if I was, a composer who was being hired because I saw the $sign on the thing... There's no way in hell that I would do that. And you can't expect those, like, random one-off, record this thing for me because I say so, out of the people who you're paying because they're there to be paid.
And we'll talk about that a little more with, like, there's another slide on project management, but, like, in terms of, like, how you set expectations and then, like, how you, like, maintain the respect of the people you're working with, because that's important. So you've got people that you're recruiting, you're talking to people, you tell them about this project that's really cool and it sounds good, they're on board with it. So how the hell do you organize them all? And like here, I guess the key word here is being able to communicate with them in a consistent way. So, like, we use Discord and email for pretty much everything. We set up Discord servers for projects, and we use that almost exclusively for messaging, and then we use email for, like, actual, like, reaching out to people in a professional way. But you need a way that is consistent that your team can use. It doesn't have to be one thing. You can use whatever if you want to use fucking Messenger or...
Though I would, especially if you were like sending people materials, I would definitely advise against Messenger or text or anything where you can't search it. Like Discord feels like it's on the same level as something like Facebook Messenger, but it is not. Discord has the ability to be organized. You can store files in there, you can pin files. Pinning things, having separate channels for like, this is where your materials are, that's important. Or you can email people individually so they can search it in their inbox when they need it. But don't just throw a script or like an assignment in Facebook Messenger, because then if you talk a little more, they're never going to be able to find it.
And having like a Google Drive or equivalent organizational structure for like where to put everything. And then the other part of organization, aside from like the literal organizing stuff in a way where you can find things, is like, and this is where a lot of fan projects fall apart, is having a structure for what people are doing what, and like what's expected of them, and like kind of who they're like expected to report to. Like, this isn't like you're not running a fucking company, but you're still running a project that has like a goal, and like it's fun to just like get together with your friends and jam, and that's its own thing, and that's a lot of fun to do. But like, if you're trying to do something more kind of coherent and organized, you do have to kind of do a little bit of structure, and you don't have to be an asshole about it. You know, be like, I'm the god director who you must report to.
I am the god of Friendsim.
You must bow to me. But like, what I have
you
here.
Are Scratch's voice actor.
Oh my god, I am Scratch's voice actor. But like, you have to like setting expectations for people, like having jobs for them. Like, actually, like I've been a writer in a couple of fan game projects that are now long gone. I won't like shit talk them or anything. They've been gone for years. But like, they both fell apart because like the expectation, like one of them just kind of like didn't assign writers to anything. I was just like, yeah, we're just like figure it out and vibe. And it's like, that doesn't really work. Like, you need to be like, okay, here are the people that are going to come up with the plot of the game. I'm using a game as an example, but like anything. Here are the people that are going to come up with the structure. Here are the people that are going to write this bit and that bit. And like, here's what's expected of them. And then like, who has the final decision on it? Like, if you have just a bunch of people who have equal say, and like, it makes it very hard to like have a clear, like, okay, here's the person who's kind of like the one who sets the tone. Like, if you have the equivalent of like a narrative director or a lead writer on a project, where they're the one that's like the kind of the keeper of the plot, the one who has to maintain the overall structure of everything, and also the one who can step in and be like, actually, no, we're not going to do this. And like, they shouldn't be a dick about it. Like, don't be like a fucking, oh, I'm gonna dictate terms to everyone because I have power. But people are gonna leave if you do that. People don't want to work with you if you do that. But like, at the same time, you should be there as a person who can say, here's what our canon is in our game or our big comic or our whatever.
And also from the perspective of not a director, but of an artist, of a composer, it's really helpful to really get some direction on that end.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love it when I am, writing music for something and it's just like, okay, do whatever. It's like, okay, but you're going to have a specific vision. I have worked on projects where I've been given direction and then the direction has been all wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's a good idea to, when working with musicians, and I'm assuming this goes for visual artists too, like, give some examples. Be like, okay, this is... Honestly, I find instrumentation really helpful, and I know people who aren't...
visual artists love it when you're like super vague and don't give them any direction, and you're just like, yeah, just figure it out, and then you're like, never communicate. That's actually what they love the most.
Like, I find instrumentation a really, really helpful thing, because like, I don't know if you gave me any direct examples for Getting On Alive Now, but you said you wanted it to be guitar-heavy, rock-heavy.
I did give you some specific examples. I gave you, like, a couple of tracks that were kind of in the vibe of what I was looking for.
remember.
Because there was like the Quake 2 soundtrack stuff.
But or for Dance of the Mutinous, you were like, I want it to sound like Half Harley Manor.
Harley Manor, yeah.
And I mean, I tried my best not to completely rip that off, but I did basically steal James Roach's instrumentation. Because for me, instrumentation is kind of where it starts with game tracks. Or really anything, honestly. I think with a very orchestration-focused...
But yeah, like having direction and guidance for people is really important because, like, you know, it is sometimes very fun to just, like, vibe with everyone, but if, like, you do want to get this specific thing done, like, having structure is nice, and, like, it also helps you to stay on task, and it helps you to avoid this kind of morass of, like, always being in the state of, like, whenever it's done. Because it's like, okay, you're going to draw these art assets, and here's direction for how to do that. Like, with visual artists, like, as a director, I can try to communicate as much as they need. Like, some artists get more leeway than others because they're doing something where it's kind of more vague. But, like, a lot of the time it's like, okay, here are some references for what this scene looks like, or here's the kind of vibe of the area I'm going for. Here's the kind of clothing that this character should be wearing. Here's why they're wearing it. Like, stuff like that where you're giving them direction. And then the last thing I have on here, and this is kind of like a subheader to all of this, is like, keep in mind that, especially if you're doing this as a fan thing that you're not paying people for, you're going to have people that drop out or have to scale back or can't do the things. Like,
big time.
Yeah, like again, we'll talk about that later as far as how you can address that. But, like, keep that in the back of your mind. Is like, don't become so reliant on, like, I need this one person. Unless that one person is you, and you can do it, then cool. But, like, if it's another person that you're working with, like, don't be so inflexible that it's like, oh, you can't quit. Like, you've got to let people exist as humans, and, like, a fan project isn't worth your health and well-being. So we've been talking a lot about, like, the idea of project management, and that I think we'll probably go. This is a quick slide because the next one is kind of long. But, like, what does project management mean even? And it's basically, like, a very generalized kind of, like, how you take a project and you make it go to its completion. So you're dealing with resource allocation, team organization, budgeting if you're paying people. We'll talk about that in a minute. Addressing problems that pop up with production, handling promotion and distribution. We'll talk about that in a minute too. And then, like, you're responsible for reevaluating it all the time and, like, deciding if, hey, this is, like, not working. Should we do things differently? And it is a skill like everything else. It's not like a cool skill like drawing things or writing things or making awesome music, but it's a skill that lets you, like, make projects not fail.
And ultimately, it's one of the most useful skills, period.
Yeah.
Like, one, you can get paid to do this in the real world.
You can. They're literally project managers.
Boring things, too. Like, I know we're not all here for capitalism and all that, but we do need to pay our bills. So if you get real good at this, you can do it to pay your bills, and then with the spare energy you have, you can do it for Homestuck projects too.
Yeah. So yeah, like, I basically, like, these are all skills that you can practice and, like, and learn about, and the more you do them, the better you'll get at them, and, like, be open and willing to improve and change. Excuse me. So this is one that I kind of, like, lumped a bunch of stuff in, but the idea of, like, the getting shit done, a non-illustrated guide. So, like, basically I thought of, like, different ways that you can kind of take your project and get it done and actually get the thing done, because that's the challenge. It's like the idea part is cool, the getting people together is cool, and you've got all these big ideas and you've got all these concepts, but how do you actually, like, get from point A to point B? And with a fan project, which has the disadvantage of not being a commercial thing that you're making money off of, you've got kind of, like, we saw it as, like, I thought of, like, 3 ways, and then Anna came up with a fourth secret way, which I'm gonna let her talk about at the end because it was smart. So basically, like, you can take a long time. You can just, like, allow for the fact that this is going to be something that takes you a while to do.
A lot of Homestuck projects fall under
Yes.
this category. Like Vox's Let's Read Homestuck. That's been going on for like a decade, and it's still going on. They just taking a long time because they're people that have jobs, and they do it when they can do it.
Yeah, and like it's something that, you know, it's a lot of fandom projects fall into this category because it's very like low key and not stressful. It's something that is relatively easy to implement. Like it doesn't put a lot of pressure on your team, which is very good. It's very good for like people not feeling like they're like under constant scrutiny or like they're doing something that's a job. But, you know, it has its disadvantages. One of the big ones is, like, the longer you do something that you're, like... Especially if you start out with, like, oh, this is the end goal of, like, I want this game to exist. This isn't, like... We're not talking about, like, a fan adventure that's serialized over the course of, like, 5 years. Like, that's different. That's something where it's kind of, like, a regular part of your life. This is something that has, like, a defined endpoint. And it's easy to lose, like, motivation over time. Like, you know, you kind of like, it's like, oh, I've been doing this forever, and like, I want to do something else. I want to just like put it off and not do it ever. And I find that it tends to result in projects that get canceled because like you get to that point where it's like, I just either you don't want to do it or it gets into the mode where it's like, it's always going to be done eventually and you never work on it. Like... I don't know if you've got any other thoughts about that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, not that I can think of. No.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got its disadvantages, but a lot of fandom projects do fall into this category. The second one is like doing things yourself. So like, if you are somebody who has a lot of skills, there's definitely like the kind of like, oh, I'm gonna do all of this myself.
That's basically what I did for Time's Apprentice.
Yeah.
Not the 2021 version, but the writing
original.
it. I was like, okay, I'm going to write book, music, lyrics, orchestrate the whole thing, direct, music, direct. It was... the 2019 stage version was chaos, and I did not make the best product because I decided to do almost everything myself.
This is the Toby Fox approach.
Yeah, this is the Toby Fox
or like, from fandom examples, like, I think Karkat Goes to a Convention is mostly Cole. Or, like, a lot of big fan adventures do this. Act 8, where Momo does, like, writing and art, and a lot of collaborators, but, like, also a lot of stuff that they do themselves. And, like...
And Friendsim 2 does a lot of this, too. You have done most of the writing and all of the coding.
I do all of the coding, and I do a lot of the writing. I'm not super great at visual arts, and I can't write music.
But you have done some UI stuff, and you've done some
UI
edits
stuff,
and stuff.
Yeah. And like, you know, this is like a tool in your box. It's like, advantages, you get a lot of control over it. Like, you are the person who can fine-tune it to however you see it. But there's a lot of big disadvantages. Like, it's... One, you need to have the ability to do the thing you want to do. Like, if you don't have a skill, you need to either have it or learn how to do it. You also need the time to do it. Like, it's gonna take you more time. And, like, one of the disadvantages is you can lose some of that collaborative flavor. Like, you may remove variety from the project, where it's like, this is going to be, like, your project, instead of, like, your team's project. And that, you know, that might not be ideal. And, like, that's something you have to be aware of going into it. It's like, you know, like, for example, the writing on Friendsim 2. Like, I did a lot of the writing on Friendsim 2. Some of it I originally planned to. Some of it I picked up from people that dropped out. And, like, there's a couple volumes that are not mine at all. Like, volumes 4, 8, and 12 are, like, very little of my writing. But, like, if you absolutely hate my writing, you're not gonna like much of Friendsim 2. Like, there's a lot of my... And I tried very hard to mimic the kind of, like, Friendsim-y style of narrative. But, like, yeah, that's the disadvantage you have there, you know. if you don't like Toby Fox's music, Undertale might not be your cup of tea. And also, it's very easy to get so lost in the details of the production part of it that you lose sight of, like, all of the project management stuff we were talking about. So, like, if you're so focused on, like, doing the minutia of getting everything done, you may lose sight of the bigger picture. So, like, maybe not the best choice for something that's highly collaborative. Like, this is more of, like, if you wanted to do, like, a fan adventure, and you have the skills to do, like, all of the art and all of the writing, and, like, that's cool. That's very cool. You should do that. But, like, maybe reevaluate what kind of project you're working on.
Unrelated, I just want to say I appreciate that there are people taking notes in stream.
Yeah,
it makes it feel so official.
You're getting a lesson. The next thing I want to touch on, and this is not going to be for everyone, but it is an option, and that is paying people. So, like, a lot of fan projects cannot do this. A lot of them are being run by, people that don't have access to disposable income required to pay people. And I'm not talking about, like, a salary, because, like, no.
Oh, I wish. Imagine if you could pay me a salary
yeah.
with your June money.
You're not paying money for Friendsim 2. I can't, there's no budget to pay a salary to people. But, like, there is the possibility that if you have some money saved up, that you can provide people with some level of compensation, which is basically like you're basically trading the money resources for them spending more time or energy on the project. Like, that is a motivating factor, because we all have bills to pay and capitalism really fucking sucks. So, like, if you do have access to some funding, it could, like, even if you're tossing, like, I don't know, you're tossing an artist, like, $25 or $50, it's, like, that is more than nothing. And also, like, personally, I like being able to do that. Like, I think it's nice to be able to compensate artists for what they're doing. Like, people work really fucking hard on stuff, and they deserve to be appreciated for that, and also they deserve to be able to, like, pay their bills. So if they're giving up some of their time to work on something, I think it's nice to be able to compensate them. However, you need money to do this. So you need to either have a source of disposable income, so, like, you have to have a job that you have enough money left over that you can pay people to do art, or you have a source of funding, like a Patreon or something, and that can be really tricky, especially with fandom projects.
Patreon is hard.
Yeah.
I have had a Patreon for about 4 years. I've never made more than, like, $50 a month. I think currently I'm at like 40 a month,
yeah.
which is great to have the extra money. There are not that many people in the fandom that have the disposable income to give to people.
Yeah, it's like, this is something that can be very tricky to balance. And, like, the other thing you've got to be careful about, and we'll kind of, like, touch on this in the next slide, is, like, you really want to be careful that this doesn't go into the realm of, like, this appears to be a commercial project, because that is a quick way to get your shit shut down.
Yeah.
So, like, Homestuck is pretty chill about this. Again, we'll talk about this in just a minute.
More so than other things.
But be careful there. So, like, it is an option if you've got friends that you can pool some money together and use it to hire artists. Like, that is and also this is a good way if you're looking for people outside of the fandom. So if you find an artist whose, like, work you really like and is really good to work with, but, like, they can't do the shit for free, but maybe you can save up some money and, like, hire them. That is a possibility.
Also, when it comes to budgets, so it's important to have an idea of your budget, but your budget will change. No matter what you are doing, your budget is, like, you have to give yourself some wiggle room. Because Friendsim 2, the original budget was what? 10,000?
It was like 10 grand.
And now it's what? 33,000?
More than that.
35?
More than that. That's about right.
Yeah, that's a lot of fucking money.
And this is spread out over several years, but, like, yeah, if you have a team of a decent size, like, the thing is, indie games are not, like, they are inexpensive compared to AAA, but, like things like Undertale had a budget of, like, 50 grand. Omori had a budget of, like, 30 grand. Like, even stuff that's, like, oh, this feels like it should be, like, $100. It's like, no, that's, like, when you start to add up all the artists on something and all the musicians and the voice actors and development time. Actually, that's That's true. I think that figure does assume I'm being paid, but I'm not. So.
Yeah, and so it doesn't, like, this isn't just with video games either. Like, every project is going to, like, I put on a 10-minute play at a festival outside of New York City a little less than a year ago. And I originally was like, okay, I'm going to spend $400 on the actors. But I didn't think about, I'm going to have to pay the actors to leave New York City.
Yeah.
So that was an additional $150. Like, things are going to, even on small projects, even on things where the team really is just you and maybe 4 other people.
Yeah.
And if there's money involved, there will be more money involved than you think. So budgeting is important, but also don't be too upset if you go over budget, because you will go over budget.
Like, this is another area where, like, it's fine to put it on pause if you don't have the money. And, like, if you're relying on, like, paying people as like, you're trying to compensate people and you are like, okay, I can't do this right now, like, that could be more of a stop and start production. Like, it's similar to, you know, the delays caused by people's just, like, having a life outside of this. And, like, that's, you know, again, something to think about, something to consider, and also, like, it's going to be another set of things you have to worry about. And then the last thing that I hadn't thought of that Anna came up with was the idea of, like, using sort of like a big event for motivation, which I'll let you explain that one.
This is a big... This is what I usually do. So whenever I have a big thing on my channel, it is almost always for SockCon. And SockCon, everyone wants to participate in SockCon. I mean, you're all here. You're all having a great time. We're all having a great time. If someone says, I need someone for my SockCon panel, people are going to be like, oh shit, I want to be part of this big thing going on in the fandom. And they will be willing to crunch to give you things, to give you materials.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people who haven't sung all year long are crunching to send 2 or 3 songs my way. Even if they haven't practiced all year round, because people want to be a part of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I'm burning out right now. I always burn out around SockCon because I got to put together a hour-long video with complete mixing and visuals and everything. Yeah. And yeah, people are willing to do more if there's a big event. And this is also, if you're not doing something for SockCon, this is when, like, a game jam would come into play. If you want to make a video game with a team of 5 or more people, and you're like, I need some motivation to make us get this video game done, but I don't have the money to pay us, that's when game jams come into play. Yeah. You do the game jam, you get the game done. It might not be the most polished thing, but you've got a game done. Yeah. And then from there you can polish it.
A good game that you release, or a good project that you release, is 100% better than a perfect project that never gets released. So that's always been my philosophy. Like, the big disadvantage to doing this is it's like, this is like the shortcut to burning people out and having them hate working on stuff, because, like,
you can't do it that often.
Yeah, you can't sustain this.
Once a year.
This is a sometimes food. I'm gonna go to the next slide because I realize we've got a bunch to get through. This is one I wanted to talk about briefly, and I'm not going to go into, like, a ton of detail because I'm not a lawyer, and neither is Anna. But I wanted to talk about, like...
We may voice lawyers, but we're not.
Yeah, right.
Do this one in your tutorial.
No. I want to talk about, like, legality briefly with fan projects, because I've seen a couple of misconceptions with it, actually, when I was going to put Friendsim 2 on Steam. Because people are like, what? That can't be legal. But you gotta put it on itch.io. And I kind of thought that too, until I started doing some research into it. And the thing about FanWorks is, and the thing about copyright law in the US is, it's very weird and fuzzy. And, like, the idea of fair use is kind of fuzzy too. So, like, basically everything you do in the fandom space is on the good graces of the IP holder. And that includes itch.io, and that includes Steam, and that includes everything you publish on AO3, and that includes every piece of fan art you create. Is like, if the IP holder really wants to crack down, they basically can do that. Like, if an IP holder contacts itch and is like, hey, this fan game, get rid of it, then it's gone. Just like Steam. The thing with Steam is it gives you more, like, visibility. So, like, Homestuck in general is pretty chill about this. Andrew Hussey and What Pumpkin, at least recently, have been very permissive about using the IP.
It is free advertising.
It is free advertising. I will say, I'm willing to bet if you charge money for something, that will change very rapidly, unless you have a discussion first.
I know Toby Fox has specifically, like, a deal with his fans making commercial
Yes,
there are a few people that have like Undertale cover albums, like some jazz cover albums, real good jazz cover albums, and basically Toby Fox gets a third of their cut.
Yeah, but basically, like, if you're familiar with, like, the idea of Nintendo fan games, you'll know that just because something is free and distributed not on Steam does not mean that another Metroid 2 remake, they blasted that shit as quickly as they could. Like, it's something to think about. Like, you're always going to be in this legal gray area, and, like, be very aware of, like, the IP that you're working on and, like, what their attitude is towards fan works, because they could be like, Homestuck, very chill. Reaction to Friendsim 2, very, very positive.
They know about... There are writers for the original Friendsim who know about Friendsim 2, and they're cool with it.
Which is great, but also, like, there's a universe where they could be very not cool about it and be like, nah, get this shit off of Steam. You're not allowed to do this anymore. So yeah, keep that in mind. We talk a little bit about distribution and promotion, which kind of dovetails into that, which is, like, once you've built all this stuff, like, how do you get it out there? How do you promote it? How do you make people aware of it? And, like, there isn't really a single good answer, because, like, there's a lot of platform options, different distribution platforms. They all have kind of advantages and disadvantages, and it's like, there isn't one that's perfect. Like, it's like, oh, itch.io is free, but also it's way less visible than Steam. Steam costs money, and it's harder to do, but it's got more visibility. And, like, there's always this balancing act. And then you get into, like, if you're making something physical, so if you're making, like, zines that are printed or merch, then you're going to have to deal with production. So you've got to deal with, like, printing or production of merch, and how do you get it out there? How do you ship it to people? And, like, that's a whole conversation that we could do an hour panel on. I don't have the right answers, because I don't know what everyone's doing, but, like, generally speaking, you should spend some time looking at, like, what your options are for distribution and, like, what makes sense for what you're doing. Like, if you're making something like software or digital stuff, you know, yeah, and then getting the information out there and promoting yourself is, like, you've got kind of, like, various social media platforms. You've got various fandom spaces. You've got, like, word of mouth from other fans. I saw someone typing that in the chat.
And word of mouth is tricky, because
it's very tricky.
It can work. You can get something just spread, like, organically on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Which, it's always great when someone organically blazes a post on Tumblr. But it's very rare. It's very rare that anything you do is going to get out there without any promotion.
I will say, like, you got a lot of options. The one thing I think that's consistent is, like, you should have some kind of website that aggregates your stuff. Like, even if it's a fucking card. Like, you should have something that has, like, links to the social media and, like, contact information.
Because, like, social media can go down.
Yeah.
We all know what's happening with Twitter
we
right
are
now.
Very well aware.
Twitter is collapsing.
I hate it.
Like, and it's really, like, Twitter collapsing is especially bad, because Twitter is such a, like, spreading things site.
Yeah.
Like, Tumblr also spreads things, but in a different way, a more long-term, long-haul kind of way. You can't solely promote on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Twitter was so important, and it is dying, so rip to every single project runner, I guess.
I want to use the drill meme with the candles, but I can't think of it right now. All my children are dying. So yeah, like, it's worth doing some research into this, and then, like,
Oh, you don't have to wishlist Friendsim 2. It's free.
Yeah, you can just
Just
get
download
it.
it.
Yeah, it's not done yet, but it's an episodic game, so like
11 out of 14 volumes are done.
yeah, there's a good chunk of it out. But yeah, like yeah, go play Friendsim 2. It's completely free.
Oh, you use wishlist as a play later list.
Oh, that's
okay,
smart.
Cool.
That's smart. I just download everything and then forget about it.
Well, you have the money to download any game.
I wait for sales. I do not have that much money available. And then like kind of the last thing before this question that I wanted to talk about, that we'll get to in a second, is like the whole idea of like scope creep and burnout, which are
It's him, the scope.
it's the scope creep. I was like, what do I put for this? Is basically like project's gonna get bigger, you're gonna come up with more ideas, you're gonna expand it, and it's gonna start to become harder and harder to work on. And like my philosophy on that is like your mental health and well-being and that of your team is more important than producing content. Like I have gotten a bunch of like artists that'll contact and be like, I'm so sorry I can't do this, or I can't like do it in time, I can't make this deadline. And my response is basically like, that's fine, like you're doing things to keep yourself healthy is more important than producing fandom content. And like you can scale things back. You can switch production modes and go a little slower. Like that's what we're doing with Friendsim 2 right now, because we ran into a bunch of major obstacles with producing a ton of art assets for the last 3 volumes. And rather than like releasing a really shoddy product or burning everyone out, we were just like, okay, we're gonna kind of slow things down for a little bit. So yeah, I think that that's the way to go, is like you are allowed to step back, you're allowed to scale down, you're allowed to like take a breath. I don't know, Anna, give your thoughts on this whole thing, because you might have a different perspective than me.
Well, I have done many a like free I used to work on and sometimes run like large-scale VA projects. Like, you are always free to walk away from them.
Yeah.
Like, there will always be fan content. It is guaranteed.
It's inevitable.
I knew one of your voices would come out eventually. Like, there will always be more fan content, and I know it is easy to feel like if you don't make this, no one will. And in some cases, that's true. Like, if it's, a project for a particularly rare part of the fandom. But the Homestuck fandom isn't going to die without your work.
Yeah, like, and honestly, if the only way that fandom would survive is at the expense of your health and well-being, then, like, fuck it, let it die. Like, there is no content in the world that's worth more than your being, like, a healthy, sane individual. Like, you're allowed to step back for your own health. And, like, I don't think that that's a negotiable aspect. Like, production in, like, the capitalist commercial world is so toxic, especially with, like, video games and software. And I think that that's shitty. I don't think that we should carry that particular aspect into the fandom space, because it sucks. Like, we can do better than that.
We don't have to treat our fellow fans like a CEO would treat its most low-paid minimum wage workers.
I think there are lessons you can learn from commercial production, and that's, like, what we've tried to do here. But also, like, there are some things that we should leave alone. Just, like, no. Crunch time.
No more crunch time. I mean, I know we were literally just talking about how crunch time for SawCon can be helpful to get things done, but, like...
That's why you don't do it a whole lot.
Like, I do it more often because I do projects outside of Homestuck, but, like, I don't force my channel... I don't force my channel collaborators to... one of my, like, longest collaborators, someone who I've been working with since I was literally 17 years old, dropped out of my panel this year because they had a really rough month and they like had an injury and had to take like 3 trips and graduated. Like, of course I was gonna allow them to not be part of the panel. Like, you don't force your collaborators
like,
to work for you, because that's not okay.
And like you're also preserving the relationships with the people that you're working with is important. Like if you're gonna be a fucking taskmaster about it and like burn people out, then people aren't gonna want to work with you anymore. And like your reputation is gonna be the dick that forces people to do shit. So yeah, last thing I wanted to go over is I had a question that came in to the forum I put out, and I thought this was really interesting, and I wanted to answer it. The person asked, "What would you change anything about your approach to Friendsim 2 in hindsight?" And that's like the biggest fandom project I've worked on ever. And I thought that was really interesting, and I thought about it a little bit, and there are a few things that I would change. One of them, I would spend more time in pre-production working on assets before we started releasing. Make sure that we had more assets already produced to avoid that kind of like pile up on the artists where it either results in a delay or it results in like people not being able to do the work.
We did a pretty good job.
We did a pretty good job of that.
We did want to release it by 4/13. So
yeah,
it did lead to that.
I would have pushed it back a little bit. I think I underestimated how much it would pile up. The second thing I would have done differently is having a completed script done for all the volumes before asset production started. And like this would have definitely meant not hitting the deadline. And, like, we had some things in the beginning with, like, writer assignment where we had people that had to drop out. So that kind of wasn't practical. But, like, this definitely would have made workflow organization better. And, like, honestly, if you're working on a game, I would strongly recommend you have as much script done as you can before you start asset production. And then you go and revise and everything. I wish we had done more pre-release testing on some of the heavier features, specifically the walk-around sections. Like, I tested them on my hardware, which is very high-end hardware.
A very, very, very fun part of this being an indie game where we can't, like, pay testers and everything is sometimes Jonaya will do bug fixes on our writers stream.
Yeah,
so if you've ever been interested in how real-time bug fixes work, the Volume 1 writer stream's got a big one.
I wish I'd had the resources to do like more testing, or the like had taken the time to organize more testing on lower end hardware, because like some of that stuff just doesn't work very well on low-end machines.
Especially Volume 7.
Specifically Volume 7.
Which is really sad, because that one is so fun, and there's so many people who can't play it.
Yeah, and like that one is just, there isn't a good fix for it, like other than rewriting the whole engine. But like
for those people, like the suggestion is just watch the writer stream or watch a silent playthrough or something like that.
Yeah, basically. And then the last thing is like, I think, and there is a reason why I didn't do this, but I still, like, it's a mixed bag, is, like, I think I would have gone with a slightly smaller art team, because, like, we really wanted to have a lot of unique artists, and, like, different people's styles, and, like, different sprites, and then, like, we ended up having a bunch of people dropping out, or, like, you know, limited ability to, like, produce stuff, which is fine, but also, like, it meant a lot of scrambling to, like, fill in gaps, and I kind of wish that we hadn't done that, which, like, whatever, it's fine. I am very happy that we had such a, like, a diverse art team, and that's cool, but also, like, it does have some problems. Like, you know, there are always, like, things about any production where you look back and you're like, I wish I'd done this a little differently. I wish I'd spent more time working on this, or tweaked things a little bit, but, you know, also, you can't go back in time, so... yeah. So, that's the end of the slide deck. Yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming. We almost made it in time.
Damn.
We almost did it. I really appreciate everyone coming. I hope this was useful. I know this is kind of a specific panel. This is, like, maybe not for everyone, because it's like, if you're here, you probably want to run like a bigger project or work on a bigger project or whatever. But I hope that it is helpful, because like Friendsim 2 in particular has been a very like illuminating experience in terms of like what works and what doesn't, and also running SockCon every year. But yeah, I hope people found it helpful, and I hope that you are able to like use some of this with your own projects to make them better and to make them more pleasant to work on and to make your life better as well. I don't know, Anna, give some closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to run a big project, go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one thing that you got to keep in mind, your first couple attempts are going to fail.
Yeah, honestly.
If you have an idea for a really big project and you've watched this and you're like, I want to go for it, it's time to go for it. If you've never done it before and you don't have a network of people who you work with a lot, if you don't have those core team people who you want to work with, chances are my first couple attempts failed. When I was a teenager, I tried running Let's Reads of fanfics, and I tried running like a Let's Read of Homestuck, like every single voice actor ever tries to do, and I was part of many of them, and they always failed.
My failed projects are so ancient, they're not even on the internet anymore. Because they're from the Star Fox fandom.
They're from the 90s.
They're from the late 90s and early 2000s.
Skyplayer says, today I learned if you want to get shit done, you have to piss with your friends. Thank you for the test. Yes, I'm showing that image.
You got it.
Yeah. So yeah, don't be afraid to do a project that very likely will fail.
Yeah, you're definitely like, I would recommend that you as far as like start yourself out with like something where your team is relatively small. You're not paying people because you don't want to sink money into something and then be like, actually, this is never coming out. And like, you will learn a lot of things as you go. Like, I mean, I learned a lot of things running project. I learned a lot of things in all projects I've ever run, stretching back before the Homestuck fandom. I did Doom modding. I did Star Fox stuff. I have done a lot of things, and professionally, like work stuff too. And I've learned a lot every time, and I'm still learning stuff. I'm still learning stuff about like what works, what doesn't work, what matters, what doesn't matter, how people respond to stuff, and like I'm never gonna stop learning those things because like nobody knows all of it, and like that's fine. You can still make really cool stuff and people will appreciate it, and then you see like a couple people that really like what you did and it means a lot to you, and like I don't know, there's a reason why we all want to do these things, and I think that it's really important and cool, and I hope that this gives you some tools to make it a little easier. Yeah. Also, I'm gonna upload the slide deck if you wanna look at it. I'll export it to PDF. And yeah, check our shit out. We've got our studio website. We're working on Friendsim 2 right now. We've got a couple of Game Jam games we worked on.
Yeah, check out the Amazicom game.
Yeah.
I wrote music in that one.
So yeah, it does stuff. Make a funky project and flourish. Yeah, you get it. So yeah, like, you can check that out. We did a couple of Game Jam games. We did the GMTK, was the space shooter thingy that we did in 2 days, and the Amazicom game that Anna's talking about, which is a visual novel that we did in like a month. And then Friendsim 2, which 11 volumes are out. We are working on volumes 12, 13, and 14. It's going to be a bit, but, like, it's progressing.
Also, like, don't be afraid to take hiatuses if you're doing
Yeah!
I mean, our original plan for Friendsim 2 was to be done by June 12th, 2023. To
have it be done a month ago.
But, Jonaya had some surgery.
I had a surgery.
We took a break for Christmas.
I had a surgery, and also, like, artists are not robots that just crank content out.
And like, some people dropped out. We had to find some new artists. We had to find a new writer for one of the volumes. Like, things happen, and yes, volume 12 is on its way. We are in the process of making it as we speak. So even if you take a hiatus, that does not mean your project is doomed.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. Thanks for coming. I enjoy the rest of SockCon.
Promo stuff before we leave?
Yes, promo stuff before we leave, obviously.
So if you aren't tired of hearing my voice yet, you should come to the Homestuck Cabaret tonight at 9. It is a We're singing some fun Broadway stuff. I'm singing some covers of Famisi songs, Rosie Lord's song, all of my favorite original fan songwriters. We have a lovely parody that Jonaya is singing, which,
God, yeah, we do.
let me just say, Gorgorlicious definition makes Gallic go loco.
God.
So yeah, if you want to have some Broadway stuck fun, we got that. It's it'll be a fun little panel, more pared down than my usual ones, but it'll still be fun. You should still come to it. If you are in the New York area, please come see Cowgirl August 10th through the 27th if you want to see some real life organization in action. And my channel is Articulately Composed. You see it on the screen. I post videos every other Wednesday. I am now doing a podcast about capitalism and creativity and how creativity is fucked up by capitalism. Yeah. Do you have any projects other than Studio June?
I mean, that's my big thing is the Studio June stuff. I'm not really working on anything else that's like not collaborating with someone else on something. But yeah, I if you haven't played Friendsim 2, do that and check out the Game Jam games. They're a lot of fun. Follow us on Twitter, and I mean, keep enjoying SockCon. It's good.
There's so much fun stuff. There's a James Roach panel coming up. We got a bunch of
panelists still to come, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun times. So yeah, we're gonna let everyone.
Go watch JoJo's panel.
We're gonna let everyone go watch the 2:00 panel. Mm-hmm. So yeah, hope y'all enjoyed it. Have fun at SockCon, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.